Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Review. Hello friends and welcome to another weekly wrap up, and they're getting pretty slim for the year 2024. We just have this weekend and next weekend, and then we'll be starting all over fresh and new, and I cannot wait for it. This week I'm of course going to go visit my family, so I don't know how many books I'll end up getting through during the holiday season, but I'm still going to be home by the weekend because pretty much everything is happening during the week, which is fun. So yeah, I should be back and able to do a final weekly wrap up of 2024, but we'll see how it goes. If I end up not reading anything, I'll still probably wrap it up. Maybe we'll do that. Because I am doing my rereading my 6-star reads, which I do every year, there is mostly repeats for this, but I do have a few arcs that I got through and something else, so we'll get into that shortly. Finally, I do just want to mention that there are still giveaways happening on my Patreon. I have it, I believe, 2 more planned to go up, and if you haven't seen the last few videos, you won't know, but I'm doing a days of a month of giving on my Patreon. You do not need to be a member. You just need to follow me as a free member on there to be able to join. All of the giveaways are public. I currently have 7 of them listed. Like I said, I'm hoping to do 2 more. There is prizes like some different arcs that I've received during the year, but I'm regifting. There are some items from my Etsy shop in there. There's also a Amazon gift card, and the item that was just put up is actually one of my patrons actually gifted their January Patreon annotated book to a winner of one of these. So that means you'll be able to pick one of my 6-star reads to be annotated, and I mean, the value of that is about a $50 prize if you don't know what it costs to do those. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, go to my Patreon down below, head over there, follow me for free, and then you can enter all of the giveaways that are listed. There's a different form for each one to enter. So, and when I get home from the holidays in the beginning of January, I'll start drawing all of those names, and then throughout the month, I'll get things shipped out to you guys. So yeah, definitely check that out. Hey guys, just popping in to say, I forgot to welcome some new patrons this month, so don't mind this inserted clip. I would love to welcome Danielle W. Thank you so much. Carrie, welcome. And Deetra. Thank you so much for joining my Patreon. It means the world to me. And now back to the video. But let's go ahead and dive in because, as I said, there's a lot of repeats, so I know I say this every week, but this will be a shorter one just because a lot of these 6-star reads I will then be talking about in my full wrap up, so I don't want to spend too much time on them here because when I do, my wrap up and my top 10 reads of the year, I'm going to be talking about all of these books in depth, right? But let's go. So the first reread I did was Sovereign, and when I'm rereading these, I'm also annotating them either for my Patreon or for myself. When I very first ever started annotating books, it was when I was rereading my favorites. So this time of year when I annotate is just, I love doing it. So yeah, Sovereign is a dark cowboy erotic romance, and it's actually, I think, pretty much the most erotic one that made it onto my top reads this year. I was a little bit more reserved with what I was looking for this time around. And this one is pretty much sex starts really early and it goes through the whole thing because it is an erotic romance and it is a BDSM deal that happens between Kira and Gerard Sovereign, and he is enemies with her husband in the beginning of this story, and he actually kind of manufactures it so that her husband gets removed from the picture. We don't feel too bad because he's a horrible man. Him and his brothers have ruined her life, taken over her family's land, and she is someone who is always kind of looking for affection, so it's really cruel what was done, because even marrying this man who, you know, was much older than her when she married her husband, even marrying this man who is much older than her and, you know, was maybe not the best choice for her, she still hoped that she was going to get affection and love from him, because that was something she was really just dying for. And he didn't even care to try, right? He just used her to be his little slave around the home and his sex bot in his bed, and that's all that she had. And when Gerard comes to the home to do some business with her husband, he sees her for the first time and is like, you know what? I want to get rid of this guy anyway. Let me do that and let me make this woman mine. And so he does. And then he sets up things so that she really has no way to say no to him. And then when she comes to his home, he basically invites her to be in a BDSM relationship with him in exchange for him forgiving all of her husband's debts. So there is a lot of manipulation going on. This is a dark romance. No one is saying that he's a hero for getting rid of her husband. And there is a lot of dynamic play and a lot of mind games that are played. But he's also not playing mind games in the way of like just trying to fuck with her. He's really kind of showing her what he can offer, and she's discovering that that's something she really wants. She wants the control. She wants the praise and aftercare that happens. And she discovers she ends up liking certain things more than she ever thought she would. And I love that kind of story. I love when BDSM is used that way. So yeah, absolutely love that. It is a 5 on the spice scale, as of course it's a 6-star. All of the rereads that I was doing are going to be 6 stars, so there's that. But yeah, I love that type of story. Then I did a reread of Cage of Ice and Echoes, and I reread this one using audio because that had actually come out, I think it was the November, the beginning of December, I don't know, and I snagged the audio of it. And I started it and I got through this so fast. I mean, this is the shortest one in the series. I mean, it's still over 400 pages, but it is the shortest one in the series. And I was just so sucked into it. The audiobook is done in the duet style, and it has Stella Hunter and Jack Hesperus. And it is, Jack does all the voices of the men. And it was amazing. So this one is more of a survival one even than the first one is, because we have 3 of our characters who are left without a way to escape the Alaskan Arctic, and we have another character who's desperately trying to find his wife, who he believes left him, but also he hasn't been able to find any trace of her. And he's like, even if she left me, I would be able to find her somewhere with all of the billions of dollars that I have and the things that I have. And he's like, I just want to find her and beg her to take me back. And he can't find her. And so the longer he can't find her, the more he's like, there has to be something more going on here. And oh boy, is there more going on here. If you have read these books, you know, it's such a mind fuck, but Pam also tells it in such a compelling way that you just can't help but be like ripped along with it. What I also like to say is that if you have read Hills of Shivers and Shadows and you aren't sure if you want to continue, I mean, I don't know many people who felt that way. I know most people, if they started it, they want to keep going because it's very like, just, it grips you. But I will say that with this one, there's less of the traumatic elements that are in the first one. It's more, again, focused on the survival, focused on the puzzles that are left behind by the madman who trapped them in Alaska, as well as the puzzles that the other guy is following to try to find Frankie. And it's just so addictive. The story is amazing. So I really wish, so the third book was originally supposed to be ready in December as well, and I was hoping to reread that by then. But I will start rereading A Heart of Frost and Scars soon, because I am actually doing some annotations in that one. I annotated the first and second one literally like fully, like every page has writing on it, because I just wanted to annotate it for me at the time. And I did like full on, here's the thing, I did a full on even like annotation guide. I don't do that for most books. I've had people before ask me to, you know, share my annotating, and like, these are the only books that I've done that for. I don't do color coded. I don't do that stuff. It's more so when I annotate, it's like I'm reading the story with you kind of over your shoulder is how I annotate. So I like react to what I'm reading and leave fun little quips and everything in the book. This one, I was trying to figure out a puzzle when I reread it the first time that I annotated this. And so there are literally marks on almost every page because I was trying to solve this puzzle that happened. It was just crazy. So I need to do that to the third book now as well, and that one is huge, so that's probably going to take me a while to get through. But I want to do that, and then when the audiobook comes out, I'll probably reread it then again too. But absolutely wonderful story, very intense, but yeah, so good. Okay, now we have a few new to me stories. So we have A Tempest of Desire by Lorraine Heath. This comes out on Christmas Eve, and this is actually the 5th book in the Scandalous Gentleman of St. James. So this is a series that she started a little while ago. I can't remember when those books came out, but it was a little while ago, and she came back around to write this one. This one is about Langston and Marlowe, and Langston is the one who's connected to all the St. James stuff. I couldn't tell you who his parents are off the top of my head, but like he's the one who's like related to like the Jack Dodger and the like all the people that we've read before if you've read hers. And Marlowe is actually a mistress on the 10th. So she's a mistress to this one man who has basically like looked out for her, and he's a bit more at this point like a friend than a lover. And he actually kind of rescued her from a bad situation, and she's been his long-term mistress. And she's really made a name for herself. Like, she's just called Marlowe. There's no last name. She's just a one-named thing, and people always like, or men always beg to have a night with her, and they try to convince her away from her current protector and all these things, and she's just not interested. She's beautiful and people desire her, but that's all that she ever really has been, is this one man's mistress. But she also likes to fly a hot air balloon, which is historically accurate for the time and for women being the ones who could fly them in the beginning. And at the beginning of this story, we have Langston, who is actually on his own little private island where there is a cottage and a beach, and that's kind of all that's there. And this is a place that he goes to for peace and quiet. So Langston actually, about a year ago, suffered a pretty serious head injury from a train accident. And at the time, it was actually called, like, I can't remember what the term was, but there's a term for it called, like, train brain or, like, train illness, or it was called something specific for people who were in, like, train accidents, apparently. And this is real as well. And he suffered what's clear to like us, the reader, probably concussion syndrome, like loud noises, bright lights, things are very tough for him. And so the last year, his personality has completely changed, and who he is so different. And he's really isolated himself away from his family. And so he goes to this island to just be away from all the noise and the sights and everything. And so he's on this little island when Marlowe comes crashing down. There is a storm one night, right? There's a tempest, and she gets caught in it, and her balloon goes down, and she washes up on his beach. What is also very interesting is that Marlowe and Langston actually know each other, kind of like know of each other, and he's always thought she was beautiful. And he happened to be one of those men previously who did try to, you know, maybe tempt her away. And nothing ever worked out between them, but they are very aware of each other. And so when she wakes up, I was very happy though, I'll tell you. I was afraid that this was going to be like an overboard retelling, because her being a mistress and him having known her before and like really wanted her. No, we don't go that way. She knows who he is when she wakes up. She hasn't lost her memory. We're not doing that type of thing. But this is very awkward that she's woken up there, and he doesn't have any staff here. It's just him. He does his own like cooking and heating the place and all those things. He does all of it on his own, and she's washed up there, and she is a little bit injured, and they're stuck there until the storm stops, because he does have a boat, but like he's not going to take his boat back to the mainland in this type of weather. So they're stuck there together. Now, what I found so fascinating about this story is I was a little nervous to start because they're both very attracted to each other. And I'm just burned out with any type of story jumping right to the physical things right away. And I was like, please, Lorraine Heath, don't do this to me. Don't do it. But but luckily, not alas, Lorraine Heath knows how to build that tension still. So yes, these two are attracted to each other right from the jump. And she is, stuck in this one bedroom, one bed, little home with him for a few days straight. And they do think about how attractive the other person is, but it's in that soft, curious, longing type of way, not in the like my cock is hard immediately looking at her type of way, right? And this is the thing about historical romance that I love. Like, you can show me they're physically attracted, just don't make it vulgar right away. Take your time, make it beautiful. And I feel that this one did that so well. And there are a lot of secrets that they both hold, like how did Marlowe end up as a mistress for this man? And how did Langston, who was the life of the party and a beloved son of his family, end up isolating himself and hiding himself away? And what other symptoms does he have left behind from this accident that he had? Because there's a pretty significant one that is another reason why he's isolated himself. And so this book is kind of split into the two parts of it. There's the time where they're stuck on this island together and really honestly falling for each other. And then there's the time where they're going to be back in society. And now we have a bit of a wooing happening, because as it happens, just to put this out there, we're going to find out that there's a reason why she'll be parting from her supporter, or her, not just her supporter, her protector. And she's going to need someone else. And, Langston, of course, will want to be that man. But the connection that they've built, Marlowe doesn't know if she can bear to lose it in becoming his lesser, by being his mistress. So this does become a little bit of the classic tale of a mistress romance. Like, how can we ever make it work, And that's a type of place that Lorraine Heath really thrives. So I don't know if I've explained this well or not, but I loved the aching longing that was put into this. I love the discussions that they have. I love how they share their heart with each other. And by the time they're actually like together physically, it's so beautiful and so romantic that I was just like, this is what I want. So this may be a sex worker romance, but it's done in that very romantic, dreamy way to me. So I think this is definitely worth at least buying on your Christmas Eve. If you read it on your Christmas Eve, that's up to you. But I really loved it. And I gave it 5 stars. It was a 2.5 on the spice scale. And there are some trigger warnings for discrimination against sex workers, injuries, neurological disorders, and things like that. So then I actually read just a quick little like bonus story, but I put it on here just because I didn't read a ton of stuff this week, and it was Matteo and Sophia's baby bonus. So this is a part of the his tesoro. It is actually the birth of their baby, and it was really cute. It was just like 25 pages, and it was adorable, but I put it on here anyway. It's a special you can get from her newsletter, I think. All right, then I listened to The Dark Before Light by L.M. Holloran, and this was one that I actually had on a previous TBR. If you recall, just a couple months ago, I did a Kindle TBR, Kindle Unlimited TBR video, right? And there was, 17 different books on that, and this was one of them. This was a book that I had actually, I think someone recommended it, but then it also had just popped up on my Do You Want to Read on Amazon, and I loved this cover. And when I read the blurb and saw that this was a therapist and patient forbidden romance, and the man was the patient, this also said things in it about there being some BDSM involved between them, and that there was like switching between both of them doing that. I was really intrigued. So I added it onto that TBR, and it has kind of just sat there, right? As a lot of books do. And then, wouldn't you know it, Must Love Audio was offering this as a book to review. And I was like, perfect, this will make me read it. So I snapped it up. And this was narrated by Sean Masters and Lucy Rivers. Great pairing. It was in dual narration. And I loved it because Sean's character, the hero's name is Kieran, and he's actually Irish. But his Irish accent is a little bit dulled because he's lived in the States for quite a while. So there's this very kind of like just slight Irish accent that he's bringing out, and it was wonderful. And then our heroine is Talia, and she is a sex therapist and psychologist, as well as a kink educator, and she uses BDSM for like mental health things. And it's so cool. So the little bit of backstory is that in the prologue, we see that these two actually met each other when they were teenagers, and her family was visiting Ireland. Now, Talia is a bit neurodivergent. It's never it's never fully said how much or whatever that she is, but it's kind of clear that she is. And in being neurodivergent, like, her family doesn't really understand her, and things aren't going well in school for her. It's not meshing. Things aren't working well. And when she's 14 and they're in Ireland, she sneaks away and she's like hanging out in a graveyard, kind of feeling sorry for herself. And Kieran, this is a graveyard that his grandmother is buried in. And so he comes in there. He's actually smoking a little bit. And they end up talking for a short amount of time. He's 18, she's 14. Nothing sexual happens here. It isn't that type of thing. But he says some things to her that really stick with her. And they actually help her when she goes back to her life to get focused on finding what she wants to be and being the best at it. And she does that. And so now it's 17 years later. And we start this book off kind of with like a really excited push of it, because she gets a call from a college roommate who at this time, she is actually the sister-in-law to Kieran. She married his brother, and he's having some mental health struggles. His wife and unborn child were killed a few years ago, and he really has spiraled since then. He is a brilliant scientist, and he's actually working in a lot of what's the way to say it? He's working with like cures for Alzheimer's, but he is just a brilliant scientist, and him and his brother own a company where they work on medicines and things like that. And he's just not doing well. He's really spiraling. And so Gail, she is like, let me try something. And so she calls her old college roommate, who she knows is a therapist, but she doesn't tell her husband or brother-in-law that Talia is a sex therapist and psychologist. Now, she doesn't just, pull out the whip and start. That's not how it works for her. But she's very well sought after. She's worked with celebrities, and she has been given awards and been like spoken about. But she's seen possibly as being a little bit tawdry by being a sex therapist and things like that. However, Gail's husband has told Kieran that if you don't try to see a psychologist, I'm going to have you removed from the board. Like, and in a very loving way, because he's like, you are hurting yourself. You're drinking and you're spiraling. And like, if you don't do this, like, you're not stable to be at the head of the company, and I'm going to have you removed. So Kieran reluctantly is like, okay, fine, I will try this. And right away, pretty much, Talia agrees to see him. And now, this all happens in like the beginning part of it. She gets this call from Gail. She's like, Gail, I'm booked. I don't have room. She's like, please see him, please. And because it's Kieran, she knows who this is. She agrees, because in her heart, like, she doesn't say this right away, but like in her heart and mind, she's like, this is my chance to repay him in some way, because I was at my lowest and he said some things to me that turned my life around as a young woman. And now if he's at a low point, maybe I can do something to help him. So she immediately takes him in, and they see each other, and it becomes clear to him by the degrees on her wall what type of therapist she is. And so now he's immediately suspicious and is like, I'm not going to kneel for anybody and blah, 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 all those things. And she's like, there's so much more to this than that, and you're going to see that if you give me a chance to do this. So like a lot of stories where it's a therapist and patient, whether it's a romance or not, there's a lot of resistance to start, but she's like, just give me the chance. Now, he doesn't remember her right away. You know, she was a 14-year-old, looked completely different, but she knows him, and there's this crazy connection between them right away. So they enter into this journey of therapy, as well as, I mean, he is super attracted to her. And so she's very much fighting that connection for a good part of the story as well. So this one technically would be considered kind of a taboo or forbidden romance, but this also wasn't as dark as I was assuming it was. It does have some triggers. I mean, we're dealing with grief, we're dealing with neglectful parents, there's some drug use, there's stalking, and there's a threat of SA, not from the hero to the heroine. So there are a few darker things. But their relationship in general, like, it's more like an angsty forbidden romance than it being super dark. And I honestly found it very lovely. Like, I really did. I enjoyed this so much. So yeah, this was another 5-star for me. And it was a, like, 4 on the spice scale. So we do have power exchange. There is some pegging at one point. And some anal, and they do switch who's in control sometimes once their relationship gets going. So this was honestly an excellent week, because I'm just realizing that everything was a 5 or a 6-star read. Because now we have some more rereads that I got through, which are ones that I was annotating and things like that. So I reread Jump On 3 by Julia Wolf, or J. Wolf, and I was so happy that I still loved this so much. I mean, you guys know, I'm a Julia Wolf stan at this point. There's no surprise there. But I was a little bit nervous about this one because this was the first one of hers that I read this year, and I gave it 6 stars, and I wondered if I had jumped the gun or something like that. But no, getting back into it, I loved it just as much. I believe that Ivan and Evelyn are just so beautiful together, but this is the one where Evelyn is on the autism spectrum, and Ivan is actually a Russian, like, transfer student who's going to Savage Academy, and they're both on the swim team, and yeah, their journey together is so interesting. So Ivan has actually had a crush on her for a while, but Evelyn's sister, her twin sister, Delilah, had a thing for him to start, and they were really close friends. And we deal with that relationship in book 2, like how Ivan kind of like pushes her away and is like, no, we're friends, and that's a whole plot point in that one. And so that means in this book, you know, Delilah is happily with her man now in that one, but Evelyn is like, I can't ever have anything with Ivan because my sister liked him first. So there's a bit of that to kind of get over. But really, Ivan is so patient with her, and he really works to understand her and find a way that their relationship can work. And really the biggest obstacles in this story are early on, it is her not wanting to, you know, cross lanes with her sister. And for him, he is the youngest son of a Russian oligarch who, you know, may be connected with some shady things and has expectations and rules for Ivan. And he may not want Ivan to be falling for an American girl while he's at school. So there's some of that. But as usual, Julia Wolf writes some of the swooniest, best things. So some comments that I've actually seen on this book is that the way that they talk in here almost is like a historical romance. And for some people that might be a turnoff, but for me, it really worked. And it's actually very character accurate, okay? Because Evelyn, she just thinks a lot about what she says anyway. And Ivan, being that English isn't his first language, he, you know, that happens with a lot of people that America is their second language. They talk a little bit more properly or don't use the words quite the way that we do. So between Evelyn and Ivan, to me, it makes sense that the way they talk to each other, it feels different. That's how deep into the characters I feel like Julia Wolf gets sometimes. So still a 6-star read, still wonderful. Loved rereading that one. Okay, then I had a 6-star reread that is not one of this year's reads, but I hadn't had this annotated and kept a copy of it. So of course, when someone asked for a copy of it, then I had to reread it. That's was my fault. But I wasn't mad because it was again the magic. So this time I annotated again the magic and I kept my notes because I'm always like, oh, no one else is going to pick this one. That would be a dumb thing to think. But so I don't have too much to say about this one. I've talked about this on my channel so many times. This is one of my favorite historical romances ever. This is Lady Aline Marsden, who is the younger sister to Marcus, who is in the Wallflowers. This is called like Wallflower Book 0. It's like a prequel because it's about Aline and Livia, his two younger sisters, finding love. So one of them is a second chance romance between Aline and John McKenna, who was a stable boy at the estate until he was chased away because it was clear he was getting too close to Aline. And she kind of pushed him away because she was afraid for him and what her father would do to him if he didn't leave peacefully. And so she chased him away. And all these years later, 12 years to be exact, she has just dealt with half of her heart being away from her. And so John McKenna comes back to the estate with his business partner, who is Gideon Shaw, and he's there to kind of broker some deals, but also he's there to get revenge against Aline. Only, is it really revenge if Aline is ready to roll out the red carpet and let him take whatever he wants? You know, that's up for you to decide. And every time I reread this, I'm worried that I won't like it the same, that I'll have changed, because Aline herself is very frustrating. And I actually really enjoy the second level love story, which is Olivia and Gideon, because it has to do with an alcoholic and him wanting to change his life so that he can win her, but her being like, you can't do it for me, you have to do it for yourself, yada 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 type of thing. But I found it to be just, it always gets me by the end. So still amazing. And then the last book that I reread, I told you this one would be a quicker one, right? Still over 30 minutes because there was a lot of rereads. But I listened to Unsteady and reread this one. And this one was still absolutely fabulous. This originally was, I read this for Patreon, but as I was reading it, I was like, I know this is going to be 6 stars. So before I ever sent it out to anyone, I made sure I made a copy of my notes for this one because I knew I would want it. It was in one of my book boxes I did this year. I loved this. And so I listened to it this time on audio, and it was narrated by Kelsey Navarro Foster and Max Meyers. This is a college hockey and ice skating romance. And we have Reese, who is a he's a hockey player who he had a really bad injury not too long ago, and he's having some PTSD being on the ice because it's a very traumatic injury and the healing process was very hard. He doesn't feel like himself anymore. His parents notice, his friends notice, he's really isolated himself. And so now it's time almost for hockey season to start again, and he's terrified to be on the ice. So he starts off this story with actually like volunteering with a like kids hockey situation. I don't know what to call it. A kids hockey charity where he will go there. So he starts out with that. And then when he has his ice time, he will have these panic attacks where he just can't breathe or move. And there is Sadie, who is an ice skater, who her 2 younger brothers are part of that skating, that hockey thing. And he kind of gets off on the wrong foot with her to start with because she's late to pick up her brothers. And he says something insensitive, not realizing that, like, she is basically her younger brother's parents. Like, how could he know that? And so he gets off on the wrong foot. And then the next day, when she shows up for private ice time, he is out on the ice having a panic attack. And so she skates out there and she puts her music in his ears and gets him to listen to that and gets him to calm down. And very quickly, an obsession forms on his side with her. And he's like, she's the only one who like quiets everything. She's the one who helps me, you know, not panic. And he started an obsession with her, and now he wants to know everything about her. Sadie has a lot of shit on her plate. As I said, she's basically raising her 2 younger brothers. Her father's around, but he's barely holding it together. He is a bum. He's a drunk. And so she's the one trying to take care of her brothers. And she is 21. at this point. So she's also actually trying to like adopt her brothers, but that's a hard road to go when you are a college student who, you know, only makes so much money and is on a scholarship. But she loves her brothers so much, and it's absolutely beautiful. And so, of course, Reese is going to fall for this feisty, wild woman who gives him shit and also gives him peace at the same time. And I just love this. I love this too because Reese's parents are beautiful people, and the way that they not only want the best for their son, but they see this girl, and instead of doing kind of the typical like rich parent thing where they would be like, oh, you're not good enough for our son, which is what Sadie expects, they are like, no, we want to help you. You're doing such a good job. You're taking care of your brothers. You're doing so much, and like you shouldn't have to, but like you're doing it so good, and we just want to help you. And like it's so beautiful that they would do that and not feel like threatened by her, what it means. And we get to know a little bit about his parents. Like I've said this, I wish there was a prequel about his parents because, guys, just the little bit we get, his parents are their own romance all in their own. But honestly, I do like that we don't know the full thing because it gives so much character to the parents without, you know, beating that story too much. Like you're just more left to imagine it. But it's beautiful. I love it so much. And the way that they are just like, we want to help, let us help. And that's really hard for Sadie to accept. And it's so cool. So this was beautiful. I cried so many times again listening to it. I was trying to get my sewing done while listening to this. And I like keep crying. And I was like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do this. But it was beautiful. So still 6-star. And I got to tell you, that one's going to be high up on the list because I hadn't read it in a long time, but it hit me just as hard. It hit me so hard. So yeah. Okay, so those are all the things I read and reread this week. I know it was a lot of rereads, but those are all books, all those rereads, except for, again, The Magic. They're going to be on my favorites list. It's just a matter of the order because after I read them, I have a little quiz I fill out for myself about how many points I think it gets in certain categories, and that is how I determine my order, because I do like at the end of the year to have a definitive order. No one has to do that. A lot of people just do, these are my top 10 in no particular order, but I like to figure out what the order is. I do like to do that. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. I do have videos scheduled to go up on Tuesday and Thursday still. And then I'll be back in time, as I said, to do the wrap-up videos. There will be my Outlander review going up later today, if you're watching this on Sunday. And yeah, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful time with your family, wherever you are. If you celebrate something else, I hope that's amazing too. And we'll see you next time. Bye.